Welcome back to another episode of Mozzy Sales. If you recall, we did some pretty terrible predictions, at least on behalf of myself and Tom, for the Challenger Cup finals. But undeterred, we're back again to make some more wild predictions for the actual America's Cup final. We've got Rossa going up against Emirates Team New Zealand, the battle-hardened Italians against the wily Team New Zealand. So, first of all, I'm going to bring in Rob, because Rob actually got it right the first time round. Maybe not the score, but he picked the team. So, let's hear from the Oracle Rob to start out.
Well, I think the first thing to say on this is that I watched some footage yesterday of Rossa sailing next to Team New Zealand, and they did not look slow in any way. But I think Team New Zealand are going to win the final. And I think what we're going to see is that it's going to be a very different dynamic, I think, to the Prada Cup final. So in the Prada Cup final, we saw the slower boat taking risks to try and win starts, and actually consistently starting behind and then just the faster boat extending away. And I do think we're going to see Rossa leading a lot of these races, but I think Team New Zealand are going to have superior speed, and if they can keep it close at either the first or second leeward marks, they'll be able to get a split, and as soon as there's a split, they'll be able to use their speed and sail around Rossa. So I can see a scenario where when the races start even, Team New Zealand will be able to capitalise and sail to victories. I think Rossa will probably have an advantage over Team New Zealand in the pre-starts just from their race practice, and certainly Jimmy Spittle's experience on the match racing front. But even when they win the start, I think we're going to see Team New Zealand able to keep it close and probably make overtakes. And Team New Zealand at the World Series were particularly terrible in the pre-start, but I don't think that was unintentional. If you're in their position, I don't really see the benefit of showing any of your hand at that point. They've been doing a ton of pre-start practice against their chase boat, and we've seen them just throwing in full foiling 360s and sailing the high mode with two foils back to the line, and I think they'll have done enough that they can get off the starts even. So I kind of based on this, I think we're going to see much closer racing than we saw in the Prada Cup final. I think it's going to be pretty exciting to watch, but I think Team New Zealand are going to win 7-0 because I think the speed edge will be too hard for Rossa to overcome.
Interesting. So quite a one-sided affair in the end, even if within the racing we're getting some overtakes. So, okay, Tom, go. What do you think?
I have to say I echo many of Rob's thoughts. I feel that, well, firstly, I hope that the racing is more exciting than it was for the Prada Cup final. Really hope that there'll be more overtaking, a bit more place changing, and a slightly evener match. Pre-start, I would back Rossa over Emirates Team New Zealand. Granted, they've been doing some training with the chase boat, but putting yourself in those real situations on a race course, Jimmy and Bruni did a pretty good job in the Prada Cup final, and they looked pretty strong in that starting box. They'll have confidence. They will think that they could take it to Team New Zealand if they need to, and I'd expect them to win at least 50% of their starts to get off the line in front of Team New Zealand, which hopefully will lead to some exciting racing. I don't know what course areas they're going to choose, but I think being on a shiftier course might give Rossa a better opportunity to get back into it. If they do get behind, that was one of the issues on the Prada Cup finals. The racecourses were pretty stable, which didn't give the boat behind much of an opportunity back into it. But I can't help but feel from kind of the theoretical side that Team New Zealand are going to have a speed advantage. I just think they're a little iteration further on in terms of their foil. I think mainly the foil size, especially for the slightly windier conditions. But saying that, I do think Luna Rossa will be as competitive in the lighter, or the difference in speed won't be insurmountable in the lighter end of the spectrum. So I am going to go for New Zealand in a 7-2 victory. I think Luna Rossa will get opportunities and will be able to make it stick in a couple of races. But on the whole, I think that I can't see past Team New Zealand winning this one, unfortunately.
Should be good to watch, definitely.
Right, shall I go for my prediction then?
Yeah, go on.
Right, well, I like a little bit of balance on this channel. So my head says Emirates Team New Zealand's leverage gain is just too much to overcome for Luna Rossa. However, I can really see some areas where Luna Rossa could or do have an edge. I agree with the lads, the pre-starts. I don't think Pete Burling necessarily, I think he's got the potential to be a good matcher in the pre-starts. He's just not got the experience that these boats have had going through the series so far, and the way he bases his sailing. I just don't think he's too concerned about applying himself to those scenarios when he would rather just make sure he had a boat which was faster. So I see Luna Rossa with an advantage in the pre-starts. I see Emirates Team New Zealand gaining upwind quite dramatically. But one thing we don't really know or can't comment on too much is the Emirates Team New Zealand tack gain and loss, especially compared to a battle-hardened Luna Rossa. And with these narrow courses and lots of tacks, are Emirates Team New Zealand going to have the legs to just reach around Luna Rossa? I'm not sure. I think it could be a little bit tighter than we expect at windward mark because of those factors. And downwind, Emirates Team New Zealand aren't using their full cant, so we have to assume they're not maximising their righting moment, and Luna Rossa could come back into it. We saw Luna Rossa a little bit stemmed in terms of downwind boat speed in the early round robins, but since then they've made some quite interesting changes to their bulb and the shaping around the bulb, and now with new smaller flaps. So I think they've got potential to have good legs downwind as well. So I think with the right conditions, narrow courses, a few kind of sub 10 knot races, and maybe even a few kind of really top end races where control is more important than just complete boat speed. Look, I really think Emirates Team New Zealand have a great boat, but for balance, I'm going to go Luna Rossa 7-4. So Luna Rossa 7-4, very bold prediction on my behalf, but I also just think, God, that boat's beautiful and it deserves to win. So a little bit of it is my heart as well. Like I do love the look of the Luna Rossa boat and the mainsail system and everything. So that's it. I'm almost certainly going to be wrong. Everyone's going to hammer me, but I've said it, so so that's it.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of sums up all our predictions in. I'm really looking forward to the match myself. I think it's going to be some great racing. I agree with the chaps that we're going to see many more overtakes with possibly the slower boats starting ahead. So at the very least, I think we're going to get some better action than the Prada Cup final. Fingers crossed. So thanks, and I'll catch back up with you during the racing.